Well, it is great to be back. And, the first thing that I just got to wonder, has anybody out there got any information about the bank failures over the last couple weeks back when this was with all of its momentum and certainly a lot of fear in that market? And I got some information about that and then some news that you can use to forecast some opportunities that I'm noticing in the market, and I think it's going to be impactful for people that are able to move quickly and understand why. So, this is Ron Wojciechowski for the Black Hole of Real Estate, and I just want to make sure that we get clear context. The bank failures, ultimately, the Fed stepped in, and a number of investors stepped in and prevented any catastrophic losses with these banks. But, it ran down to, about zero? At least it felt that way. And it was probably poorly orchestrated by the leadership. I think it's pretty well documented at this point. But along the way, what we're noticing is that they didn't fail. A lot of people got extremely, extremely nervous about it. We're lining up to get money out. And the hedge fund managers were, if they had their stock trade lined up, and they probably had some automation, or maybe they didn't lose their shirt, so to speak, but a lot of people lost a lot of money really, really fast. And the volatility has only further created a situation where people are looking to real estate versus assets and investments and equities. So on the bank failure, here's what I would tell you. We've seen 2 or 3 of these. Maybe there's another 1 or 2 coming. But the reaction from the Fed was pretty fast. And if you would survey the economists, the week before that, 99.99% of them would have said the Fed was going to do a rate hike at the next meeting. A few days after, that number was cut in half to about 50%. So it's very unlikely we're going to get an increase at the next Fed meeting. Now, why is this significant or important? The sentiment is that after one meeting with no increase, the next 3 will be a quarter point each as we travel through the midsummer year to the fall quarter. Now, what does this mean to you? Why is this important? What it means is, if you are going to make a purchase, the interest rates are likely to be lower over the next 45 days than they're going to be for the next 90 to 150 days. So the purchasing power that you possess is going to be higher during that time. So if you can imagine someone selling a property, seeing this bank collapse happen, and maybe, just maybe, getting a little bit more motivated to sell their property, and you know that your purchasing power is going to be greater for the next 45 days, this is where preparation and opportunity meet. So this is a big opportunity in a small window. So if we had 30 or so more days to capitalize on this strategy, what should we be doing? Well, if you're a buyer in this market and you want to purchase at a perceived advantage, now would be a time to be a little more aggressive on the offer, knowing that your purchasing power is greater today than it will be in perhaps 90 days or even 60, knowing the sellers may be a little bit more motivated today than when the dust settles on this. This could be that window you're looking for. So if you're a buyer in this market or someone making an investment in this market, this is probably the time to really, really think about making that next move. And it doesn't mean that you won't have a deal over the summertime. It just means that right now your opportunity appears to be greater than it will 45 days from today. So, banks failing, collapsing, well, it didn't actually happen, but I got real close for those banks. Interestingly enough, when we see this, I think if you go back 100 years of banks and failures and collapses, ultimately the Fed doesn't like to tell you this, but it's my understanding that every depositor has been made whole through the Fed. They just don't advertise it. They say there's a limitation for $100,000 or $250,000. There's all these different things that they might protect for you. My understanding is that everybody's been made whole over time, but it's not well publicized. So, there's something a little bit different, a little bit of a twist for you. But ultimately, the bank failing thing created a little bit of an opportunity. And for some people in the next 45 days are going to be able to take advantage of it. Just know that there's more Fed rate hikes coming because there's still this inflation thing that's occurring. And my suspicion, if you wanted to take on inflation that has nothing to do with real estate, everything to do with politics and economics, all attempting to mesh, my suspicion is that somewhere around the 1-year mark before the presidential elections, the hope is that inflation is waning, interest rates are dropping, and there's a little optimism going into that all-important last year before that next election out there. It's crazy, but it's It's 18 months away, and it's something out there. And I think a well-orchestrated plan might be to tame inflation, begin to lower interest rates, and get some optimism and some energy going into that cycle. So we'll see. Maybe I'm way off base over here, but if I was plotting a strategy and those things were in front of me and it was going to take a long time to fix it, I would want to fix it at the right time. So we'll see. Maybe that vision is a little bit off, but maybe we're spot on. We're going to find out. Now, when we talk about purchasing power, interest rates sitting in the sixes currently, it's really no different than a run-up in 2004 to 2007-ish, right before the crash. The difference is it's full doc loans right now, and I think this is well documented. It's not the liar loans or the fake loans or the pretend you make $100,000 while you're cooking French fries loans. It's not those things. It's historically, reasonable interest rate when you look at interest rates over time, just not as low as it was. We're also in that cycle where, that's 4 times in documented history, rates rose as sharply as they did when they spiked up in 2022. It's about a year ago right now. The other 3 times within 18 months, the interest rates were about the same or lower. I don't know if this 4th time it'll be lower than it was, that 4% barrier that we were at last year before it really spiked up. But I think this will be a lot lower than 6 by the time we get into the fall quarter, and a lot of things aligning themselves. And again, you can be strategic or cynic or both at the same time. I think that things will look a lot better towards the end of the year, regardless of whoever's going to be popular or electable at that time. I believe that we're just pushing through a cycle that looks like that. So what is the real estate outlook for this? We know that from the early numbers of 2023, that the number of properties being sold is less. And it's been that way for a few months. We could argue the bottom was the end of October, bottom of the real estate market, maybe early November. And we're seeing the further we get from that, the more that probably was the bottom. But the number of properties that are being sold is less year over year, January, February. The inventory is higher than it was year over year, January, February. And the kicker is that the median sales price is still up about 1, maybe 2%. And where people expected the market to crash and crash hard, that didn't happen. And be off, or just down a little bit. Well, that's not happening so far yet either. And my suspicion is that we continue through the year, what the story is going to be something that doesn't seem quite right, because there's more inventory and there's less buyers, but yet there's no downward pressure on price to make that happen. And with the softening of interest rates, my suspicion is we're going to continue to see a slight increase in home values. Slight, not huge, but not a crash. So what do we do next? And if we consider these assumptions or these visions or maybe well thought out principles, it's a different dynamic. It kind of flies in the face of everything we've been taught about supply and demand. Well, we've always looked at it, well, geez, if supply goes down, price has to go up. Not necessarily. There was always other things in there. And now I think we're seeing those forces playing out. Inventory can be increasing. Demand could be slowed down or delayed, which I think we're delaying. But now I think we're going to see something where the demand increases again because there's purchasing power. And as more people learn about this purchasing power, and you'll notice it because, hey, I just bought a house and I got a lower rate. Why'd you do it? Oh, because. And they'll tell the story. My purchasing power is greater right now than it'll be later this year. And I don't want to wait till the end of the year in order to make a purchase, because most purchases are not based on investing. So they're based on a residence, a place to live. And as long as people are getting married, getting divorced, having kids, becoming empty nesters, getting a job relocation, moving across town, closer to work, all those things, those are the normal reasons that people move. And people have moved under those conditions at 3% interest rate, 10%, 20% back in the 80s. They moved because they had to move or chose to move, not because it was a good investment. There was a greater opportunity for the quality of life or where they wanted to be, or simply in a home that more represented where they were at that point in stage of their life. So people move for those reasons. It's really, does anybody wake up and say, I've been in my house for 10 years, I really like it, but man, the interest rates seem kind of low today for the next 40 days. Hey, let's move. It's not that. It's never that. No more than somebody says, well, we're blending a family, but we're going to stay in this one-bedroom apartment because it economically doesn't make sense. We'll just live here crowded. See, that doesn't work either. People move for other reasons. It's a very small percentage of the sales that are investment minded, and now it's emotional. So emotionally, I'm ready to make a move, and I want to make a move, and there's a need that requires me to get a bigger house or a smaller house or a different house or a different location. And it just so happens the timing isn't too bad right now. We're at the end of tax season. I've got all my documents done. Financial advisor and this guy, Rahan, on the podcast said, hey, this is a good time to look at an opportunity. There's a little dip in the market here. Maybe it's a good time to buy in, just like my stock investor said. As a matter of fact, the real estate, you know what, if I was to make an investment, it's a lot safer than the volatility in the stock market going all over the place right now because those properties didn't go down in value. Maybe that's a smart thing. And all of a sudden, moving for your own reasons, and it also happens to be smart. See, that's a catalyst. And that's an event. And that's why I believe what you'll see over the next 45 days will be more activity in the market. Here's where it gets fun, because the ones that go under contract for the next 30 to 45 days are going to be closing in the next 60, 75, 90 days down the road. So this little spurt of activity is going to cause the pendings to happen in March and April, the closings to happen in May, June, and July, and it's going to push this market forward. So even as we're moving into a market where maybe the rates are, because the Fed's going to go up another 0.25%, that couple of meetings, if that's what holds true, it's still going to be caught in the momentum of that. So I believe this market just continues to catapult forward for those reasons. And, when you start to think about it, look at the other side of that. It's a better deal. Nobody's going to buy. Definitely for the next 45 days, we got fight, flight, or freeze, right? Fight, we're going to fight through this and get the house that we want. Flight, we're just going to forget about it, bury our head. Or freeze, we're just going to do nothing. Well, nothing's a choice too. But if you argue the other side of it, we know that we need to move. We're crowded. We have too much room. We're in the wrong home, whatever that is. And it's a great opportunity. Rates have softened. Sellers are more open-minded about taking an offer. I just want to do it. And, I'd rather wait and probably pay more a little bit down the road, or I'm definitely just going to suffer in my current condition. See, arguing the other side of it doesn't make as much sense as what I mentioned in the front piece, that right now we're in a window of 45 days. This is an absolute opportunity for anyone who's in the market, and it's not salesmanship because I'm just here delivering the information for you so that you can make a great decision on what your next move is going to look like and what are the financial consequences to something that emotionally and personally is really important to you. And that's what I have for you this week. So I hope that this enlightened you a little bit. Maybe, I don't want to say triggered you, but listen, we got you to listen. And this is a big piece of what's going on right now. So I want you to hit the subscribe button. Keep listening because there's going to be more events like this throughout the year. And this information is going to be key to making great decisions that emotionally support where you absolutely personally need to be. This is Ron Wysokarski for the Black Hole of Real Estate.